Welcome to Superintendent's Report, a monthly discussion program featuring current topics affecting the Norristown Area School District. Today, Superintendent Dr. Michael Woodall and the Director of Educational Programs, Mr. Ken Long, will be discussing problems surrounding poor attendance.
Student attendance is extremely important. Attendance serves as the foundation for all that the school does. Without student attendance, the schools can do nothing. The best school program in the world isn't any good when students aren't in school to participate in it. In addition, attendance is an important habit of life. It is critical that young people learn that others need to be able to count on them showing up when they are expected. This is both true in college and on a job. Last year, approximately 10% of our students were out per day. Also, 1,400 students missed 20 or more days of school. That is 22% of the students missing at least a month of school. Because of its importance and the low level of student attendance in the district, the board has established a goal of improving student attendance this year.
Well, I know that the school board has given you kind of a task to implement this whole idea of student attendance. Do you have any ideas how we're going to do this?
Well, Ken, what we've done is we have met with each principal, and we have gone over their attendance from the previous year, and we have set goals for improving student attendance. They're different from each school, from school to school, but the purpose of each goal is to decrease the absentee rate by 10%.
10% over the previous year?
That's correct.
Yeah. Do you think that's an attainable goal?
Yes, I really do. In addition to working with the principals on doing that, there are some things that we're doing at the district level to try to assist the principals in their efforts to improve attendance.
I think one of the biggest things in any kind of a plan or any kind of goals that anyone has is the idea of implementation. Anybody can make a plan, anybody can set a goal. I think the very difficult thing is to implement this. When I look at these figures, 22% of our students missed a month of school. So instead of going to 9 months of school, they're going to 8 months of school. This 22%. It's almost a quarter of the kids in this school district. I think that's astounding.
It's absolutely horrible. It is not due to natural causes or illness. If we had a fourth of our students to be out for a month or more, the public health people would have been saying that we had a plague in the community if there had been some natural cause for that level of absence.
You know, Mike, I also think it's incumbent on the school districts to do something for the future for these youngsters. I mean, education is the future, I understand that, but habits of mind and habits that they can carry over into the workplace. Now, I know both you and I have spent some time in business. I just cannot imagine going to an employer and saying, I'm going to be off for 30 or 40 days every year that I work here, but I still want my raises and I still want to move on. I mean, I don't know what, I think we both know what the industry would say.
Absolutely. I mean, no business or any employer is going to tolerate that kind of absenteeism.
You know, I'm a big proponent for time on task. I know a lot of people, it's been in vogue to study Japanese schools and other schools. And one of the things that they do and I know you've spent some time looking at other school districts and schools outside of the United States, is they spend more time in the classrooms. Longer school days and sometimes longer school years. So instead of 180 days or 187 days, many of these countries are spending 222, 240 days in school.
And in addition to that, for instance, in Japan, while the Japanese government provides 5 days of public schooling, the parents typically, out of their own pocketbooks, pay for Saturday school that's a private school in addition to those 5 days.
like a big program of tutoring. And
So even when you look at Japan having more than 200 days of school, in addition to that, the parents are paying on top of that probably for another 50 days. Here our students have 180 days of school, and you're looking at Japan having probably close to 300 days of school.
You know, I think maybe our audience would like to know some of the practical things you've done up until this point as far as attendance. I know you've talked to the courts and things of this nature. Do you want to elaborate on that any?
Well, one of the things that we did this summer, we went through every student's attendance record for the previous year. We've identified the students with the worst absentee rates in each grade. We have gone over that information with principals. In addition, we have this past month targeted 27 students, and the parents of those 27 students have already been taken to court. My staff reports to me that the judge was very supportive, and fines were doled out to these parents because their children are not in school. What we're looking at, and I think it was very obvious to everybody involved, is that with these students, it is a matter of not necessity that they be out of school, but it's a matter of not caring position.
Right. I know, I've had a lot of jobs around the districts and around the district. A few years back, I was a vice principal in this very high school where we're taping this morning. And at that time, and I think I've talked to you before about this, but the audience may want to hear this, I went around to a lot of different teachers, maybe 15 or 20 teachers, and I asked them to give me, not by name, but just by student number, the 5 top students in their class, and then the 5 bottom students in their class. I asked them to give me the grades, so the 5 top were like maybe 5 A's or maybe 4 A's and a B. And then the 5 bottom students were D's and F's. I said to them, they didn't know what it was for, very, very informal. Put the number of days that they were absent. I did this in about April or May, so we had been in school over 130, 40 days. The number of days that they were absent. And it confirmed everything that we've both thought or anybody has thought, and that is that the students who consistently got D's and F's were people who were absent like 37 days, 43 days, 29 days. The people who were getting the A's and the B's consistently were people who were absent 0 days, 1 day, 4 days, 3 days, things of this nature. And remember, I put that all together, and I still have it back in my office someplace, and I surveyed about 101 students, I think it was, that we had. There was only about 2 exceptions where a youngster had been out a long time and still got an A or a B. So, that's an informal type survey, and it wasn't a standardized study, but for my intents and purposes, and I know I've read a lot of the other research, it's there. If you are in school and you make an honest effort, you're going to succeed. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But if you don't come to school, you're going to have a problem no matter how bright you are.
That's right. I mean, this is not a very complicated topic.
Yeah.
You can't drive a car without getting in the car, without showing up and being in attendance in a car. You can't be successful in school if you don't show up. You can't remain employed if you don't show up. You can't be successful in college if you don't show up. Showing up, which we call attendance, is probably the most critical thing that a student learns in school.
Well, I'm glad you took this. I think you took this as a #1 goal in the district, and also gave it to the principals as a #1 goal. Because I think anything like this, it has to happen at the grassroots level. The building principals involved, the classroom teachers involved. We at administration building, we can kind of lead in a way that these are our aspirations at attendance, but it's really going to come from that building level. And I think you reiterated that in your meetings with the principals.
That's right. Every principal has developed a plan for his own building. They vary in the different kinds of things that they're going to do. They're looking at different situations. We do have different situations in different buildings. There are 4 elementary schools in the month of September whose worst attendance was on Monday. There are 3 elementary schools whose worst attendance in September was on Thursdays. And I mean, so you get different patterns of problems in different buildings, and you have different students with different problems.
I think we're also able to attack the problem a lot better now in the 1990s than we could before. With all the computers, we have different programs, and we have the capacity in this district to rewrite the computer programs if we need them. So if there's something there that we're not seeing, I know you've directed our computer people downstairs in the administration building to rewrite some of the programs. Do you want to tell us anything about that?
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing is we're asking, sometimes we have students from the same family who have different last names, for instance. And so one of the things that I've asked to be done is that we search all the attendance problems by parent's name. Because typically students with very poor attendance all come out of the same families. And so, of course, when we go to court, what we do is the court holds the parent, the law holds the parent responsible, not the child. And so what we're doing is we're pressing charges against the parent. So, for instance, in September, I know we had one parent who was brought in because of 3 different children in their family. And so we merged all those cases together and presented them to the judge. One of the things that I think we probably ought to talk about is the economic issues connected with student attendance. If you look at last year's budget and the number of students in the district, the taxpayers spend approximately $50 a day for a child to go to school. Okay? If you divide that by 180 school days, if you take that number, what we're looking at is that every time a child's out, we've spent $50 for a child to have a program, and that child is not receiving that program. When you have an absence from school that is not necessary, what you're really looking at is an uncontrollable governmental waste of taxpayer money. Every time a child is out, and they don't need to be out, the taxpayers have wasted $50. And that really adds up. There is no reason in the world why 22% of the children should be out 20 days or more. There's just absolutely no reason for that at all.
Yeah, and I know when we get into March and April and we get into budget hearings, and a lot of people come, and rightfully so, and talk about taxes because it's on everybody's mind. I think this is a good place to start thinking about it now instead of waiting until April or May whenever we get into the budget hearings, but start talking about how we're using our funds now. Because I know that's a big thrust of yours, that the finances are used in the correct way. So it's good to put it in these terms of $50 for every absentee. When you think of it that way, it becomes a major problem for us.
It is a huge problem.
Sure.
I am very happy on an up note to say that when we check September's attendance records, every school met the goal for this year.
Great.
So our challenge is now that in October, we will meet it again. And hopefully, month after month, we will be able to meet that goal to improve attendance.
See, I think that's important for the audience to note that during the month of September, even though it's the first month that we're really getting into this, that every school improved by at least 10%.
That's right.
So that's another way of saying it, that you got to have measurable goals. So right now we're saying, we don't do everything right, but at least we got attendance up 10% during the month of September. So when we come back a couple months from now or next month, maybe we'll talk about something we've done well in October. One of the things I want to talk about a little bit is, in my duties around the district, have to do with programs. And the program, which is really the thrust of what I do in my office, and of course Dr. Woodall in his office also. Attendance is a building block for this. Now, what I've done is kind of put a couple props together because I kind of speak better when I can see what I'm talking about. I'm a visual person. And what we tried to do, I heard Dr. Woodall talk a couple weeks ago about a pyramid of success. So we went down and tried to have these props made so everybody could see them, and I think it really tells a story. And that is this. We've made this one especially big. And this is attendance, okay? If you don't have attendance as your block, as your foundation right there, then nothing else is going to happen, nothing. The second thing you have to do in that school is you've got to have a good discipline program. And of course, the Norristown Area School District, I think, has always been noted to have pretty much, to have discipline and to support good discipline around our district. So you have the attendance, the student has to be there. Then you have a discipline program, so the classroom and the school has to be completely under control. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. And then the student has to bring a lot of responsibility to it. And I know in the new program that Mr. Howe and also Ernie Hadrick are writing with their committee about discipline, they're going to talk a lot about student responsibility. That is doing the work. Student has to do the work. It doesn't happen by osmosis. It takes good old-fashioned hard work. Has to be done that way. But notice, I keep reiterating this, attendance is on the bottom. If you don't have this, you don't even have this, and this isn't even there, okay? Then the last thing which the school is ultimately responsible for, and that is the program. If the program isn't working for you, then what you have to do is you have to come and see Dr. Woodall, or you have to come to see me after you've seen your building principal or your classroom teacher, because you have a legitimate complaint. I don't like this program, it's not working, I want something done about it. We have thick skins, we can take that, okay? But what we're telling you is, as the parents, the community people, we'll try to do this to the best of our ability. We'll try to do the discipline as best of our ability, although your youngster has to have some responsibility also. But we need to have them do the work. But the main thing, let me take these down off here so we can see what we're doing. The main thing you have to do is you got to get your youngster to school, the discipline. Our whole thrust this morning has been about that. And I think for our first superintendent's report, I think this is a great way to start, because if you don't have this, you have none of this.
Absolutely, Ken. And I would like to say that although the school system is going to assist and try to do what it can to promote student attendance, to promote good behavior on the part of students, and to promote students doing their work in class and in homework. Those are not the primary responsibilities of the school. It is the primary responsibility of the parents. And we cannot be ultimately responsible for the attendance, the discipline, or the doing of the work. Those are things that need to be taught by parents. Our responsibility is primarily to provide the program that the children can participate in. Ken, I'd like to thank you for being with me today, and I would like to thank you for watching. Please stay tuned for future reports about topics of interest in your school district.
You have been watching a Superintendent's Report, a monthly discussion program featuring current topics affecting the Norristown Area School District. The preceding program has been a production of Norristown Area School District and NASD TV.